Hello, everyone. Welcome to the meeting. We're just going to give it a few more minutes to allow some more attendees to trickle in before we get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Sumner Tunnel Restoration Project meeting. Right before we get started, I'm going to begin by introducing our interpreters one by one, who will introduce themselves in their native language and give you instructions on how to join their channels. I will begin by introducing our Portuguese interpreter, Carolina.
Olá, esta reunião também está sendo oferecida em português para você que preferir escutá-la em português. É só clicar no ícone do globo na parte de baixo da tela e selecionar a opção português. Boa reunião.
Thank you, and I'll introduce our Arabic interpreter, Haidar.
مرحبا، أسعدتم مساء. اسمي حيدر، أنا المترجم باللغة العربية وسأقوم بالترجمة من اللغة العربية إلى اللغة الإنجليزية وبالعكس. إذا أردتم الحصول على الترجمة الفورية لهذا المؤتمر أو هذا الاجتماع، رجاء الضغط على علامة الكرة الأرضية التي ستظهر أسفل الشاشة والتي ستنقلكم إلى قناة ترجمة اللغة العربية. وشكرا جزيلا. Thank you so much.
And next is our Haitian Creole interpreter, Esther.
Bonsoir, non, moi c'est Esther et que moi c'est interprète créole haïtien et si par exemple on a besoin de traduction, c'est très longtemps.
And finally, our Spanish interpreters, Marta and Robinson.
Muy buenas tardes, bienvenidos a la reunión del proyecto de restauración del túnel Sumner. En esta ocasión van a tener ustedes acceso a este servicio en español con interpretación. Recuerden que para activarlo tienen que simplemente activar el botón del globo que encontrarán en el centro de su pantalla y allí podrán escoger la lengua que más les convenga, en este caso español. Muchas gracias y que tengan una buena reunión.
Thank you. And with that, I will pass it off to Michael Drew to begin the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. We're going to be doing a presentation for the Sumner Tunnel Restoration Project. We've been here before in the past, in the spring of last year, in the preceding springtime, leading up to the critical work that we're doing in the Sumner Tunnel. We'll go ahead and start with some instructions for the VPI staff as far as meeting protocols, and then we'll get going.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So my name is Billy Wolford. I'm going to be one of the Mass DOT producers this evening alongside my co-producer Hung Pham, who's going to help me to facilitate the question and answer session at the end of the meeting. So we'll quickly review some of the Zoom controls that you'll use to watch the meeting this evening. You can listen into a different language by clicking the globe icon at the bottom of the screen. You'll also find your audio settings on the bottom left of your screen. The chat function is going to be disabled for this meeting, so please submit any written questions you have by clicking on the Q&A button at the bottom. You can submit your questions at any time, and we're going to answer them at the very end of the hearing during the Q&A session. During Q&A, you'll also be able to ask a question by using the raise hand function. and then Hung will give you access to unmute your microphone so you can ask a question verbally. The next slide. So the notice of recording, the Mass DOT may choose to retain and distribute the video, still images, audio, and/or transcript from the meeting this evening. All parts of this meeting are going to be considered public record. By continuing to attend this virtual public meeting, you consent to participate in a recorded event. If you're not comfortable being recorded, please turn off your camera and keep yourself muted or excuse yourself from the meeting. Note that your microphone and webcam are going to be disabled upon entering this meeting, and we are open to all questions and answers at the very end of the formal presentation. All comments and questions are welcome and appreciated. However, we do request that you keep things respectful during the meeting. On your screen now is the Mass DOT Diversity and Civil Rights Statement. If you're interested in learning more about our diversity and civil rights policies and how they affect our public meetings and hearings, please reach out to the Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. You can see the link there that will take you to their website. And I will now hand the presentation back to Michael Drew. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. And again, welcome. My name is Michael Drew. I'm a project manager in the design build section for Mass DOT. For this project, we have multiple staff from our project staff on, so we all collectively welcome you. We were here last night putting on this presentation and briefing. Again, we're going to go through a project overview. We're going to discuss the construction schedule, how the department and our partner agencies are looking to manage the impacts that will be occurring traffic-wise, etc., with what is going to be a 1-month closure of the tunnel starting July 5th to August 5th. We're also going to talk about some of the communication mechanisms that we have in place, including public outreach, and then we'll open it up for questions. Next slide, please. So again, here with us tonight with our project team, we have Highway Division staff, including myself, district construction staff, legislative affairs representatives for MassDOT. We also have our contractor, JF White, project manager, Chris Blanchard, as well as our public involvement team, Howard Stein Hudson. Next slide, please. So again, we'll go briefly over project overview. Next slide. So this project was awarded, this project is a design build project, which effectively means we have a contractor and designer team that has very good advantages for this type of project, which we'll get into later. The project is led by JF White Contracting. The project was awarded the $136 million project with additional secondary costs. It was awarded in June of 2021 with major completion scheduled for late summer this fall, with complete contract completion December of this year. Next slide, please. So how did we get here? We started after award of this contract, and again, it's a design build contract in what the designer is working directly with the contractor to prepare for the construction activities. We started weekend closures in June of 2022. We did weekend closures throughout the following year to build up to 2-month closure in last summertime in July and August. We also did subsequent weekend closures in the fall of that year, 2023, as well as started up weekend closures this springtime. And leading up to the full summertime closure, we're here again as we were last year and the following or the previous year to get the word out and provide information to the public. Next slide, please. So again, this is a schematic of the tunnel itself. The tunnel is a tube tunnel. You can see the outer ring of the tunnel on the outside. Outlined in purple is the upper tunnel arch. In blue is the tunnel ceiling panels. That upper portion is basically the exhaust plenum that brings out the exhaust from the vehicles. Also along the walls, you can see where we've been doing wall repairs, as well as installing fireproofing panels, as well as replacing the tunnel lighting. And then the bottom graphic in yellow is the tunnel structural deck and wearing surface. Below that is a lower plenum that brings fresh air into the tunnel. And that's very important that what's outlined there in yellow is going to be the majority of the work that we're performing during this month closure this summertime. And one thing to really stress and note is that if you look at this graphic, from curb to curb, the tunnel is only about 23 feet wide. So that really is what necessitates shutting down the tunnel, whether for a weekend or for the 1 month closure. It's really just very restricted in there to have construction vehicles and actually perform construction. Next slide, please. So completed work to date over the course of those previous weekend closures, as well as the 2 month closure last summertime, and then leading up to what will be this 1 month closure this summertime. We've been concentrating on the upper arch that you saw in the graphic earlier. We're installing precast concrete arch panel liners below that structural upper arch, as well as replacing the concrete ceiling panels. We've also been doing, again, wall repairs and installing fireboard panels throughout the tunnel, as well as installing new lighting, closed circuit television, upgrading the fire alarm systems, and then overall installing conduit and cables for the systems in the tunnel. Next slide, please. So again, we'll go over briefly the construction schedule. We can jump to the next slide. So the tunnel closure schedule, basically, again, we started out in 2022, in the June of 2022, with weekend closures throughout the course of the following year, building up to a full 2 month closure last summertime. That tunnel closure began on July 5th and lasted throughout the summer, ending before the school year. And then we did subsequent weekend closures in the fall of last year, as well as doing weekend closures building up to what will be a 1 month closure starting July 5th of this year. And then based off of the remaining work, we're going to determine what additional weekend closures may be needed during the end of the summer and fall, in eventually finishing the contract in December of this year. One thing to note is that when we started this process in this project, the initial plan was to do a 16-week closure during the summer of 2022. And then again, we had mentioned that this is a design build contract with the designer and contractor working together. So in collaboration with MassDOT, what we were really able to do is identify methodologies to, instead of doing a full 16-week closure in that initial summertime, to do a 2 month closure, get it out of the school year, and then plan for a 2 month closure this summertime. But in continued collaboration, what we've identified is methodologies so that we can implement a 1 month closure this summertime with additional weekend closures. Next slide, please. Again, the tunnel closure schedule. We've been conducting weekend closures in the spring of this year, and we'll be working towards that 1 month closure starting July 5th. We'll be conducting weekend closures this weekend and the following weekend. And then on July 5th at midnight, we are going to be basically 12:01 a.m. We're going to be closing the tunnel for 1 month to really get to the heavy construction that remains to be done. Next slide, please. Again, the anticipated work for this summertime is really focused on the structural tunnel deck and the roadway surface. The deck is a structural concrete deck with steel floor beams that we're going to be doing a rehabilitation of the structural deck and then repaving the surface for a smooth riding surface. We're also going to be continuing to install conduits and cables for the systems of the tunnel, as well as replacing the drainage pumps in the middle of the tunnel that are known as the mid-river pumps. Next slide, please. And again, we fully understand the impacts that are going to be occurring, particularly with traffic during this closure. And we'll go over some of the ways that we're trying to manage those impacts as best as possible. Next slide. So again, we all know that downtown Boston and Logan Airport are some of the busiest areas in the region that see very common, especially pre-COVID numbers. We're up to those pre-COVID numbers. The commuting congestion is obvious for anyone that lives in the area. And what we're really trying to stress is that going into this 1 month closure, we had mitigating strategies for what we saw in the 2 months last summer, but we're really trying to stress to the public to anticipate that type of impact again and be able to plan for it. So that's really why we're out here now in last night, to really get the word out so the public can be prepared for that extra congestion. Next slide, please. As part of planning for the closures, both last summertime and this summertime, we have a working group structure, basically of agency professionals across the board that report to management level, and basically really start to try to target opportunities to mitigate the impacts of the tunnel closure. We have basically working groups for dedicated public safety officials, transit issues, communication and outreach, as well as the business community. It's a structure that worked very well for last summer's closure, and we've been implementing in working together with these working groups for a number of weeks and months leading up to this closure. Next slide, please. Again, what's going to be very important is coordination with other construction projects in the area. We are basically going to be monitoring those fixed construction sites that are already in place. We're going to be looking to really reduce at all opportunities maintenance and construction activities to maintenance and emergency maintenance activities during off-peak hours. We're also going to be setting up a command center that we can really monitor the activities of not just this tunnel closure, but traffic in the surrounding area to see if we can make any adjustment that needs to be done during the closure. Next slide, please. Managing impacts for this specific contract. With any contract, what we've always implemented as MassDOT with our standard operating procedures is disposal of runoff and materials off-site, field monitoring of dust control, water control, noise control, as well as pest control. With anticipated impacts to traffic, we've also been monitoring and making adjustments to various critical intersections in the area that we're basically implementing real-time traffic monitoring that has been implemented during the 2-month closure last summer, as well as will be in place throughout this summer, so that we can monitor those intersections and monitor traffic to see if any adjustments can be made to help flow. With this contract, we'll also included an incentive disincentive program with the contractor and the design build team. In that, it provides monetary compensation and incentives for the design build team to get the tunnel open on time, meet those critical milestones, and also monetary disincentives to encourage the same successful completion of those milestones. Next slide, please. Again, with public safety, this is one of the most critical aspects of the closure that we're prepared for and worked very diligently leading up to the closure last summertime, and again have been preparing for this summertime. We have a general tunnel emergency management system always in place for any significant events, and that's in the past coordinated with public safety officials, different agencies within the area. But we also have a very specific Sumner Tunnel contingency plan that we have a working group with emergency responders, police, fire, EMS, ambulance services that have tabletop exercises where we've been able to go through different scenarios to really start planning for these closures. Also, we're going to be increasing ambulance services in the area during the closure with extra ambulances and shifts in place, and then monitoring response times so that we can make any adjustment as needed during construction. Next slide, please. So again, we are fully aware that the number one impact that we're going to be seeing in the community in region is going to be seeing during the closure is traffic. And one of the things that we really looked to implement last summertime, as well as this summertime, in a very similar, basically identical model, was to look to encourage mode shift. And that would be to say, to try to get folks out of their vehicles, to quote unquote, ditch the drive, and get folks utilizing transit, commuter rail, ferry service, etc. We also have detour routes in place in and around to point folks towards the Tobin Bridge route, as well as the Ted Williams Tunnel route. But what we learned from last summertime is there's also a significant diversion through the East Boston and Chelsea community, which and again, we're going to be utilizing that real-time traffic monitoring system to really observe those critical locations. But one of the things that we did observe is that almost half of the what we expected of vehicular traffic before the tunnel closure looked to do those different alternative routes, whether the detour routes, whether the side routes that occurred, within the area, but also mode shift. And we'll get into some of those opportunities for mode shift in just a moment. Next slide, please. One very powerful tool that we had in place last summer, we will be in place this summer, and the dedicated project website. We have a project website that has instructions for accessing this Mass 511 system. And the Mass 511 system is providing historical data and will be including real-time data day by day during the summertime closure to be updated to provide practical information on travel times for different designated travel routes outside of going through the Sumner Tunnel. Next slide, please. So again, here's a graphic of what we're going to be implementing as far as alternative travel options. You can see in the purple, the Newburyport Rockport commuter rail line that will be receiving fare discounts, as well as the blue line in dotted blue that is going to be free of charge during the tunnel closure, as well as the detour routes outlined in yellow across the Tobin Bridge, as well as through the Ted Williams Tunnel, as well as we're going to be providing discounted tolls on ferry service for folks from Lynn, Winthrop, etc. Next slide, please. Again, some of the alternative travel options, and we'll get into specific details. The MBTA Blue Line is going to be free during the closure. MBTA has been working very diligently to reduce and eliminate the travel time or speed restrictions for maintenance work. I believe the headway for the MBTA Blue Line trains are approximately 5 to 7 minutes at this point. The MBTA is also going to be providing additional Blue Line trains during the midday peaks. MBTA parking lots for the Blue Line are going to be reduced to $2 a day, as well as additional free parking is going to be available for Wood Island. That may be a little bit limited in nature, but again, the remaining MBTA lots are going to be reduced to $2 a day. We're also going to be providing free service for the MBTA bus routes, the 111, 112, 114, 116, and 17, as well as the Silver Line 3 shuttle from Chelsea. We're also going to be providing an extension to the Easy Pass resident discount program for members of the local community that are already enrolled in that discount program. We're going to be extending that to the Ted Williams Tunnel, as well as the Tobin Bridge. And again, we're going to have a sophisticated real-time traffic monitoring system in place to really monitor the critical intersections that have been identified through last summertime's 2-month closure, as well as anticipated through this 1-month closure. We're also going to be providing free East Boston ferry service to downtown Boston. Next slide, please. Again, from the North Shore, we're going to be utilizing the opportunity with the commuter rail. The Newburyport and Rockport line is going to be reduced to a $2.40 fare. That's the same fare as a typical MBTA transit fare currently, whether it's the blue line, green line, red line. We're going to be doing the commuter rail on that line for the same fare. For Salem and Swampscott parking lots, the fee is going to be reduced to $2 a day, as well as north of Salem, those parking areas are going to be free of charge. We're also going to be operating the Lynn Ferry for the same fare. That would be $2.40. And there's also parking in the Lynn-owned lot near the Blossom Street Pier to be able to utilize that ferry. We're also going to be working with the Winthrop Ferry in the same type of discount for $2.40. Next slide, please. Again, with the Logan Airport in Massport, we're going to be working with Logan Express for Logan Express folks that utilize Logan Express. If you buy your tickets online, it'll be a 25% discount, as well as children under 17 will be able to ride for free. The Braintree Logan Express lot will be adding capacity. The MBTA Silver Lines SL3 and SL1, we're also going to be enabling that the Silver Line to be able to access the Ted Williams Tunnel, utilizing what is now an emergency ramp to really increase the efficiency of the Silver Line. We're also going to be providing a program ticket to skip for Logan Airport passengers that are utilizing water transportation they'll be able to skip right to the head of the security checkpoint. We're also going to be adding the Logan Airport stop to the Winthrop Ferry. Next slide, please. Again, communication is really going to be important. That's why we're out here tonight, as well as last night. We'll get into some of the communication and outreach that we've been continuing and have done in the past, as well as ways for the public to keep informed. Next slide, please. So we've started these public information meetings last year, the previous year before the weekend closures, as well as leading up to this 1 month closure. We've also been doing regular briefings with the legislative elected officials, as well as stakeholder and community groups. We've also been doing direct public outreach with neighborhood pop-up tents, informational posters, working with the communication systems for Logan Express, regional bus companies, rental car companies, as well as ride sharing companies, as well as direct outreach to local abutters and businesses located in the proximity of the tunnel. We've been providing that information with, again, a dedicated project website, a dedicated project email site, as well as providing regular updates to the project for anyone subscribed with that project email. We've also been utilizing social media posts, press release, newspaper notices, and radio advertisements. Next slide, please. And again, we'll bring this slide up later as we go through questions so that anyone has an opportunity to jot this information down. We have a dedicated project website, as well as a dedicated project email site, as well as a hotline that'll be in operation during construction that can be utilized. Next slide, please. So next steps, again, in summary, building up towards this summertime closure, we're going to be doing a couple of additional weekend closures during the weekend of the 14th and 21st, as well as, again, the full month closure will begin at 12:01 a.m. on July 5th and last a month. And then we'll determine afterwards, based off the remaining work that needs to be done for the project, weekend closures that will occur in the late summer as well as fall. And then we'll be finishing up the construction and the contract completion December of 2024. Next slide, please. So again, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions and answers, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to Dan Fielding with MassDOT Legislative Affairs Office.
Thanks, Mike. I'm Dan Fielding with MassDOT Ledge Affairs. Typically, before we open it up to public Q&A, we like to recognize any officials that have joined us. I actually don't see anyone in attendance tonight as an elected official or staff. If I'm wrong, please feel free to correct me, raise your virtual hand. I've been wrong before, but I do want to mention this project's been going on for obviously a few years. This is our second full closure. The state and local delegations in the immediate area of the tunnel, the surrounding communities, the communities that use these tunnels the most have been engaged in many ways in supporting and advocating for this project through the principals groups, through outreach and other measures. So we just want to send a thank you to them, as well as the BTD and Boston EMS, who've joined us both nights and also been supportive. So with that, I will turn it back over to, I think, Billy or...
Yes, thank you, Dan. Okay, so before we jump into a Q&A, just a quick reminder of the controls to ask a question. You're able to either click the Q&A button at the bottom and type your question in so that I can read it aloud, or you are also able to raise your hand by clicking the raise hand function, and then Hung will call on you, we will unmute you, and you'll be able to ask your question verbally. We would ask that you keep your questions under 2 minutes since we have a pretty large attendance tonight, and that you keep your questions respectful. So I see that we have a written question here from an anonymous attendee who asks, my employer has required all staff to be back in the office 4 days a week. I live on the North Shore and commute to Quincy. Has Mass DOT made any communication with employers to ask that employers allow their employees to work remotely during the weekday closure period?
And again, that's part of why we're out here with all the public outreach that we've been conducting. Really, what we're trying to do is not just get the word out to the most affected community in the region, in the vicinity of the tunnel, but also to expand it to regional, to really try to get the word out so that folks, employees, and employers can potentially make adjustments in preparation for this type of closure.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for that question. We have another anonymous question here who asks, using public transit takes even longer and has significant additional costs, especially for those traveling from the north to the south shore, given the lack of a north-south connector. Has Mass DOT looked into options for those traveling north to south, such as Lynn to Quincy, such as more ferries?
So as far as the scope of this project, what we've really been trying to concentrate on is alleviating the congestion that's going to occur from the North Shore and the local vicinity of East Boston, Winthrop, Revere, etc., getting into downtown Boston. So we've been concentrating on basically those links with the Blue Line, the commuter rail, and that type of thing that will be affected. The Sumner Tunnel is a one-way tunnel into downtown Boston. So we've been really concentrating on that link.
Thank you for that question and that answer. It looks like that is it for written questions. We will remain on for a little while longer to give people a chance to think and type out some more questions. It looks like we have one question from MJ Mueller who asks, could you please go back to slide 30 in order to take a photo of the project website, email, and phone number?
And Billy, why don't we leave that up for the duration, just in case folks that are on that can go ahead and copy that down.
We have a raised hand from Christine. Oh, Billy, I do not have host ability, so I cannot unmute. I apologize.
All right, give it a try now.
Yay.
Hi, thank you. I have a question. Is it possible for a blast email to be sent out on, say, Thursday before the weekend that the tunnel will be closed for random weekends, not for the July 5th to August 5th closing, to let residents know that that's going to be happening? A couple of weekends ago, the tunnel was closed and I had not seen or heard anything either on the news or between neighbors, and found myself stuck in the middle of Meridian Street for a half hour. So it would be good if a blast email could go out for those random weekends going forward that it's going to be closed, just to let people know.
Sure. And then I'd like to invite from Howard Stein Hudson, Erin Reed from our public outreach team. I believe that we have it set up for Gov delivery or the Sumner Tunnel email site sending out blast emails. But maybe Erin, if you could correct me if I'm misspeaking.
Yeah, no, Mike, that's right. So we do have a little over 4,000 people currently getting our Gov delivery. So you can go to the project website and sign up there. And then you will get those notifications right in your email, and then share it with your friends, neighbors. You know, we've seen that Gov delivery grow, you know, as the weeks go on and from last year to this year. So just head over to the project website and you can find the Gov delivery to sign up.
Thanks, Aaron.
And again, it looks like that's it for questions now, but we will hang on for a little while longer to give people another chance to type in your question or raise your hand.
Yeah, let him up. Come in.
We have a raised hand.
Boy or girl?
Okay.
You hope it's a boy.
Hello.
Hi, you broke up. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
My question is, well, you closed for 1 weekend at the beginning of March. And it seemed that after that, trucks were hitting the roof in the Sumner. Did something happen that started to cause that? And has the actual height of the tunnel been accurately measured lately?
So
That's my question.
the weekend closure that occurred in March, we did investigation. Excuse me, an investigation of looking at the roadway deck to really, look at opportunities for to adjust work to really enable this reducing this to a 1 month closure this summertime. But basically, the pavement was basically the same thickness and same thickness as the existing that has been out there for a number of years. But as far as the permanent clearances, those won't change. So unfortunately, we've been seeing those type of impacts. We've also been seeing those previous, previous to any of these more recent closures. But we're also going to be doing additional signage, permanent signage, to really try to, try to lessen those overheight trucks, as well as on Route 1A. We're going to be having overheight detectors installed as part of the project. And then we've also started working with the trucking companies themselves to try to get the word out to drivers. We all know that we've been seeing a lot of impacts, but the clearances haven't changed.
We have a raised hand from Mimi. Mimi, you can unmute yourself. Okay. Let's get back to Mimi later.
We have one written question come in from MJ Mueller, who's asking, will there be info available to check on approximate travel time to get through the delays on some of the alternative routes?
One of Billy, if you want to go back to the 511, I believe it's a few slides back. Nope, a couple forward. Yep. So the Mass 511 system, and again, we have instructions on how to sign up for this with the project website. That is basically going to be providing estimated travel time information for selected routes through the area. Basically, that is set up based off of actual travel time measurements that we recorded last summertime, as well as we're going to be updating that throughout this month closure. And basically it's a tool that the public can use to get an estimate on what might be the best route to take during different times of day, during different days of the week. And again, if once we can go back to the project website slide, but that has instructions on the project website of how to access that.
Want to try Mimi again? Mimi?
Right, what's going to happen with the exit that goes into Chelsea with the trucks?
Can you be a little bit more specific? Is it basically the exit at the split coming into the Sumner Tunnel? So, but again, is with trucks, and as far as overheight vehicles, what's going to be implemented as part of this project, we've already started implementing as a department some additional overheight signage in proximity to to the Sumner Tunnel entrance and that type of thing. But we're also going to be implementing as part of this project overheight detection systems on 1A prior to the exit ramps towards the Sumner Tunnel. And basically what those will have is electronic overheight detection, so that if a truck that is over over the posted height for the Sumner Tunnel or even the Ted Williams Tunnel, there will be an alarm and flashing sign that'll go off. And then prior to the exit towards the Sumner Tunnel, that'll be out there on 1A. So, but again, we'll be implementing these different methodologies to try to discourage overheight vehicles from getting into the tunnel. But one of the most difficult things to obviously control is human behavior. But again, the department is going to be implementing as much as we possibly can as far as signage and as far as overheight detection systems.
Okay, we'll do one final call for questions. We'll sit down for one more minute for a final call for questions before we close out the meeting.
And again, if anyone has further questions after this call, again, particularly that project email site is a very effective way to get additional information back to, excuse me, any specific questions.
Joe has his hand raised.
It did not affect me this weekend, but I saw where you closed the exit off of 1A to Route 145. I don't understand the advantage to that. All it does is push traffic further back to the next exit. Or to Boardman Street, the people turn around there. I don't understand the advantage to doing that.
And that's something that we observed during the first weekend closures prior to even last summertime. That's part of the state police operating procedures to clear traffic congestion outside of the airport area and terminals. You know, obviously in an event of an emergency within the airport, so that they can temporarily close that ramp, flush the congestion out in the event of an emergency that needs access. But what we've been really trying to do is to try to get a handle on communication of when that's going to occur, so that we can use our virtual message signs in the field, as well as what we've been trying to implement. Particularly, during the weekends, we really start seeing that airport traffic building up in the afternoons, particularly for the weekends. But again, what we've been trying to do to communicate that and when that's going to be occurring is with our signage in the field.
And maybe last thing, you realize that when you send people to Bell Circle to turn around, they don't always go to Bell Circle. They turn around at Winthrop Ave, or I think it's actually 145 as well. They turn around there. And it just ties up people trying to get out to the Revere Beach Parkway. The locals know it.
Yeah, again, one of the things we did observe, with particularly, even starting with the weekend closures, but a lot of folks are really taking different back ways, and that type of thing. That's why we have basically that real-time traffic monitoring system, out there during these closures with particular intersections that we're looking at, to try to pick up on that type of behavior. So, but again, as we wrap up, any other questions and that type of thing, please feel free to utilize that project email site. And again, thank you very much on behalf of the department for attending, and anyone that attended last night as well. And again, right now, July 5th, basically at 12:01 is going to be the beginning of that tunnel closure, with a weekend closure this weekend as well as the following weekend. And following that 1 month closure, we'll be evaluating the remaining work that needs to be done for the project, in limiting that to selected weekend closures. So, but again, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. And again, the project email site is a very effective way to get in touch with the project. And go Celtics. All right. Thank you, Billy. And why don't we go ahead and wrap up?